In this video, I am taking someone else's drawing and turning it into pixel art. Meyuu is an animator, an illustrator and a streamer from France, and we're doing an art trade. She's going to take one of my pixel arts and turning it into a digital painting, and I'm going to take one of her drawings and turning it into pixel art. So, let's get into it. Now, unlike some, Meyuu is a very prolific artist. She keeps a sketchbook of daily drawings into a variety of different styles, and in there, I found this one. It's a little bookshop with some big stairs everywhere for people to sit on. It's really cute, it's fairly simple, so I have a lot of room to add stuff and add detail and kind of add my vibe. So that's what I'm gonna do. Now, what I usually start with in these isometric pieces is a line work of the main elements. Here you can see the original is already almost isometric, with a very similar 3/4 view seen from above. So the first step was just to recreate what I saw in pixel art. I was working on a canvas of 240 pixels by 320, keeping the same 4/3 aspect ratio that I usually work with, but this time vertically. And at the time, this was the biggest I'd ever worked on. Things were pretty straightforward so far. But, of course, I wanted to add stuff. Ultimately, the biggest task was that I wanted this building to sit in a scene, right? Not just to stand alone as a prop. Originally, I wanted this place to be in a forest, where the building was embedded on the side of a small cliff. The bookshop could then turn into some kind of secret fantasy literature club. I did a bit of a path in front of it, some stones, some foliage everywhere. The problem with that was the cliff. I didn't find a way to make it work. I didn't want it to be too tall, otherwise it would make the scene feel probably a bit too claustrophobic. I learned that from my remake of the Oasis scene in Digimon World 3, but that would mean we would have to see the top of it, and I just didn't know what to put there. So I scrapped that, and I went back to my roots: dirty, colourful, wet cityscapes. This was now going to be a bright, neon bookshop on the corner of a dark street. I added a building on either side. This gave us two streets. This one is going to be a commercial area, so the building on the left is going to be a video game store. The street on the right is going to be more of a major axis. You know, the ones that are, pretty pleasant to cross by car because they're very large, but utterly depressing to live in. So I did more of a residential building with some nice columns up front that I 100% borrowed from Blade Runner. This exercise, right, of figuring out a story or some structural info about how your world is and why it is the way it is essential if you want to add detail, right? It's pretty easy to get into it, add a few elements, and then be stuck with some large open areas that you don't know what to fill with. So instead of focusing on these open, empty areas, focus on what you already have, right? Try to flesh it out. Say you made a shiny tree in the middle of a square. Why does the tree look like that? Why is it in such a central location? Why would people want to come and look at it? Say you have a lonely guy in a dark room. Who is this guy? Is he a student? Is he rich? Is he wealthy? What are his hobbies? Asking yourself questions like that isn't easy, and I really didn't like doing it at first, but it really helps making more compelling environments in general because everything fits into a narrative. Finally, I added some more signage, a bit of stuff on the streets, some gutters, some wires, some overall sci-fi stuff, and also a seemingly inconspicuous robot at the entrance that you probably know very well if you come to my streams. His name is Spencer. He's become kind of the mascot of the channel. Colouring in this piece was a bit of a chaotic process. I'm not sure if you can tell by watching the time-lapse. Speeding things up has a way of making me look a bit more confident than I actually am in my choices, but it really took me a while, because at this point I still had no idea what I wanted the main building to look like. I know the rest of the scene was going to be the same purple to blue to cyan ramps that I use everywhere, but what of the main building? Basically, I fucked around until I landed on this shade of red, with the slightly interesting thing that it broke the rules that I usually use for hue shifting. Here, the colour of the light here is obviously yellow, but the red ramp actually goes back towards purple as it gets lighter. It was sort of improvised on the fly, but I mean, I liked the way it looked, so I kept it. From there, adding detail was the same process that I usually use. I roughly shade every element on the drawing before then going back in and adding texture to break up the shadows. I added some plants. Plants are always a nice thing to add to a piece. They make a place feel a bit more lived in, a bit more alive, a bit less clean, I guess. I fleshed out the potted plants here, and at the end I also added a bit more weeds at the base of the building. I also chipped away the building a little bit to make it look a bit more worn down. That way the light catches on the edges of the building a little bit more nicely, and it's a bit more, interesting to look at, I guess. What I really had a lot of fun with though was the animation. There's a lot of elements everywhere, so I had a lot of opportunities to add some small looping animations to just give the drawing a bit of life. Animation gets pretty dull to show on a time lapse though, so instead what I'm going to do is just cut here and show you the recap. And that's it! I'm really pleased with the result. I hope Meyuu liked it. This was a lot of fun to work with. Like I said, she's also going to remake one of my drawings. She decided to remake the little forest scene that I made a few months ago. Here's a bit of a teaser. I'll leave you with the links to her socials in the description if you want to see what she made. Big thanks to her for agreeing to do this, and big thanks to you for watching. I'll see you soon.